Sorry, I just got into wearing this thing. I just want to talk about some future objectives, to lay out a plan actually for why. I think this needs to be a movement, an organized movement that I hope to get help with. But here are the objectives. At this point in the pandemic that we're in 2022, and we know we're still living with COVID-19. We should all have masters in epidemiology and virology, really. And maybe not masters, but I'm telling you, everyone should know what a life year is. We should know whether, for instance, poor Joe, who died at 46, had a terminal carcinoma and was going to die 6 months anyway. I talked to you guys about a general calculation of life here based on life expectancy. But there's also very specific cases of people who died and really only had 3 or 4 months left. And that's something that should have become the narrative. People should have understood it, and we should have been seeing if, how, and not if that was changing. We see the median years came down a little bit, although it's still really high. But that was something that should have been included in a context. I think that's a future objective. People should know what the coronavirus was. It came out of surprise, not for no reason, but because as a virus, it's not a very, doesn't have great potential to become a pathogen, a very viral one. And so, the objective, which is, I'm telling you, I'm doing research on it. Um, Basically, no one has to answer to a lot of these things. There are just a lot of support for, this isn't very likely to happen again, or it's more likely that, just like with the 1918 flu pandemic or winning the lottery, the odds of it repeating itself are just as unlikely as the odds of that it happened the first time. But these are all things that the public can understand better why, and why there's this trade-off between viruses, between becoming, more transmissible, the role that poor public health infrastructure and cleaning of streets played, and older, deadlier plagues that were much more devastating. People should know. Um, but yeah, especially about the coronaviruses, the rate at which they make mutations, what are the other most frequent mutations, and then all these mathematical models that are they're actually not really trying to predict. They're making predictions, but it seems like no one wants to answer that question, which is a big question. You know, does the circulation of the virus in unvaccinated people, which aren't or are not as good vectors as other animal vectors that don't even get sick from it, make it any more likely that it will become, you know, a deadly or more deadly? And those are questions that can be explored because of the what of the type of virus it is, and the difference between how that virus works and how the HN viruses work. And we've been in this so long that there's no reason why people shouldn't have answers to those questions. Also, the question of transmissibility and surface contacts and the gels, and why um, some viruses can stay on surfaces but not they don't stay viable, and all those are other things that people should have understood. Why we decided that no, this was the whole gel protocols when were at the end of the day not necessary. And yeah, these are some of the things that I hope to go into the public with. That I think that it's pathetic that that all we've been getting is we'll see how it goes. We might have to mask up and close down. But I got to get some of my socialist bona fides in, so I do want to make some shout outs. I think Bernie Sanders is my hero. AOC, I think, is the best person in the U.S. Congress, and I put my hopes in her and her crew to save the United States. to be honest. I would think Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema are corrupt and evil, and I think any legitimate news person that doesn't think that the only thing they care about is their own personal money gain is absolutely crazy. And a news actor, as my for great intelligent friends at TYT say all the time. I think the commercialization of news has been your problem. Has been the problem in the United States. When you're complaining about censorship, but capitalism and having to sell people what they want to hear is what made your news no longer news anymore, in my opinion. But I do give a shout out to Chris Wallace. When I discovered that guy, I think he was like the only real journalist left on television who actually cared about asking legitimate questions to both sides. I had a lot of respect for that guy. But I think there's a lot of corruption that's not talked about. And even though yeah, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, I think they are evil. I don't think they care about anyone but themselves. I definitely don't think they care about Black people or the right to vote. I have to say it. Anyone who supports banning CRT is racist. Period. And because they don't even know what it means. They don't even know what it means. And I guess the last thing, maybe to end on a good note, I think there's hope. I think there's hope for us, and I think that uh, the right has gotten too like knew in their gut that something was wrong and didn't know how to express it, and didn't have enough experience with logical discourse. And I think I think that can change with I do think the left was getting a little out of control. You know, shaming people or whatever you want to say. Not, I do. I feel like the conversation was getting out of control, and I'm hoping that this can kind of pull us back into a more sane place where we're having legitimate debates about things in a world where money isn't limitless and hard decisions have to be made, but in good faith and not fallacious arguments. And even though I call Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema evil people, that I know a lot of people on the right think they're heroes. I'll tell you what. After all this money that we spent on, I'm sorry, Joe Biden. Joe Biden won the election, but after the millions and trillions, after the trillions that were spent on COVID, the fact that all these things I just named, we're not all experts on, and that we can't, talk about how they needed 7 ICU beds up in Idaho, and man, they turned up some mobile hospitals, Vietnam style in 3 days, and the fact that people are not more well informed on these things, I wouldn't give, I bet Biden, I wouldn't give a dime to any Congress to spend money to leave a country to where we're still having shutdowns in 2022 and all these things that I'm talking about. You never hear people talking about them. So that's the only pass I'll give to Joe Manchin. Because besides that, I think he's corrupt. So.